Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be a very, very interesting one and kind of a crazy one in a way. Tonight, we're going to be talking about possession, and we're going to be talking about basically, we're going to be going over an article, a news article that is kind of really shocking in a way. It really caught my attention when I saw it. And I've had this one in the vault for a little while, and I kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you. And I was kind of looking through everything this week, and I came back across this article, and I said, wow, this is a cool article. I wanted to talk about this, so that's what we're going to do today. So this is from wavy.com. It's 10 on your side. It's some sort of news site. The title of this thing is "Her Eyes Were Completely Black. Virginia Family Fends Off Naked Woman Who Claimed to Be the Devil." And this is from Chesterfield County, Virginia. It was written by Taylor Cunningham and Dean Mishari from WRIC, and it was put out July 5th, 2019. A Chesterfield family spoke with 8 News on Friday after fending off a naked intruder who broke into their home on South Twilight Lane the night before. The intruder claimed to be the devil and attacked the family, prompting the homeowner to fire 39 rounds. The incident was a traumatic experience for the Lewis family's first night in their brand new home. Quote, "She was in to kill us," end quote, Melissa Lewis said. "That was her almighty, to kill us. She attacked us and I held her down, just kept punching her as hard as I possibly could." The Lewis's dream home now looks like a war zone, with blood soaked into the carpet, the walls and windows riddled with bullets, and shell casings scattered all over. "I said, 'Who are you?' Lewis's husband, who did not wish to go on camera, explained. She said, 'I need your help. Please help me.' I said, 'Get out of my house.' And she said, 'I'm the devil.' The homeowner says the woman, who had a blue ponytail, broke into the basement around 10:30 p.m. on July 4th. The family said she was laughing menacingly and refused to leave. She looked possessed. Her eyes were completely black, like saucers, and she was laughing like it was a joke," Lewis's husband told 8 News. Fearing for his life, the father of 3 grabbed his pistol and gave a verbal warning to the woman. With his family sleeping upstairs, he opened fire on the intruder. Lewis said the woman aggressively charged at him with superhuman strength. She was not stopping, he said. She had the strength of 4 grown men. When he ran out of bullets, Lewis began throwing furniture at her. His wife and children eventually jumped in and attempted to stop the woman. The intruder didn't stop until one of the children, the Lewis' 12-year-old son, Logan, shoved a wrench into her neck. Police arrested the intruder, and she is being treated and evaluated at the hospital. The Lewis family left with bruises and bite marks. "I'm scared to go in there. I won't even go into any room by myself. I'm terrified," M. Lewis said. Detectives told the family that the suspect lives nearby and will eventually be charged with robbery, breaking and entering, and attempted murder. She is currently in the ICU with severe head trauma. And that is the end of the article. Now, this is one that there has been a lot of talk about. I've seen a lot of people saying that this woman was possessed by a demon. I've seen people say that this woman was one of the black-eyed children or the black-eyed adults, and that is why her eyes were all black. Some other people say the reason her eyes were all black is because she was demonically possessed. And then there's those that say that the lady was just crazy. So what we're going to attempt to do tonight is to kind of go through this a little bit and try to figure out what the possibilities are here, what could be. Something happened here with this woman that caused her to attack this family, and it says here that the homeowner shot 39 rounds. Now, 39 rounds, that's a hell of a lot of rounds. That is not a single magazine of a pistol. If you're talking a revolver, then you're talking 6 or 8. If you're talking a pistol that has a magazine, you're talking anywhere from 10 rounds to maybe 15 rounds, something like that is most magazines. Now, you can get magazines that will hold a little bit more, but you're not going to have a 39 round magazine in a pistol usually. unless it's some really modified thing. So that means that this guy went through a whole magazine and then ejected that magazine, slapped another magazine in, chambered around, and started firing again. He had to have gone through 2 magazines. Now, with 39 rounds, you're probably talking, I would guess, probably 20 round magazines is what he had. And there was a total of 40 rounds, and he shot 39 of them before he ran out of bullets. That would make sense to me. So the question is, did he hit this person with any of those rounds? We know that she's in ICU with a severe head wound, but that could be from the wrench and from the woman, Melissa Lewis, punching her over and over again in the head as hard as she could. It doesn't appear like this guy made any real good kill shots because she kept coming. And they didn't mention any kind of bullet wounds. But you would think with that many rounds coming at somebody who's charging you like that, you would imagine he probably hit her. So what could make somebody run through a hail of gunfire, take a potential round or two or more, get punched in the head like that so many times, get hit with a wrench, all this stuff before she finally stopped? Well, we know that drugs can absolutely do that to somebody. The old classic is PCP. If you come from my generation, then you have heard many, many tales of people that were high on PCP getting in fights with cops, and the cops putting 20, 30, 40, 50 rounds into the person before they finally went down. Now that sounds insane and absolutely superhuman, but it is well documented to have happened over and over and over and over again. So that is one possibility here. It did happen on July 4th. Now, one thing that most people do on the 4th of July is party. People like to drink, they like to do drugs, they like to set off explosives, they like to party. So it would make sense that this person would have been partying. Now, to most normal people, that consists of drinking some beer at a cookout. But for parts of our population, that includes drug use. It ranges all the way from, some simple weed all the way up to crazy drugs like bath salts that make you want to eat people's faces. That's another possibility here. Maybe the woman was on bath salts, because that affects the brain in crazy ways. I've seen a lot of videos of people under the influence of bath salts that do crazy things. We all remember that story from Florida where that guy ate a person's face while he was on bath salts. But I've seen people walking around like deranged lunatics, screaming that they're demons, that they're possessed, that they are the devil himself, that they're God. I've seen them do all kinds of crazy stuff and just scream incoherently at the top of their lungs in very frightening voices when they're under the influence of bath salts. So that is definitely a possibility as well. Could the woman have been possessed, and that is why she was acting this way and possessed this strength? And is that the reason why her eyes were all black? I seriously doubt it. First of all, actual demonic possession is a rare occurrence. It's not something that happens very often. When it does, a lot of times it's very subtle. And in order to get the demon to fully manifest, you have to provoke that demon with scripture. You have to hit it with some holy water. You have to cause that demon to manifest and show itself. They don't like to be front and center like that. So it's very unlikely that, one, this woman was possessed, and two, if she was, that the demon would manifest itself in such a way that it would try to attack this family and take all this damage. I seriously doubt that. Also, the black eye thing sounds to me like they watched too many episodes of Supernatural or something, because that's not something that happens in a possession. You don't have the eyes go all black like on TV. That is not a real thing. That is something that is from the realm of make-believe on TV. It's not what actually happens in a demonic possession. You will have the eyes roll back into the head to where you will see the whites of the eyes. That does happen sometimes. Not all the time, but it does happen sometimes. You will have vomiting, but you will not have projectile pea soup vomiting like in The Exorcist all the way across the room. But you will have vomiting sometimes. You will have cursing and swearing and biting and urinating and just overall unpleasantness. But for the most part, it's nothing that is too crazy. What you see in the movies and what you see on TV does not really depict the reality of an actual possession case. They're very rarely like that. Now, every once in a while, you'll get one where they'll talk in weird voices and struggle and against you and try to get up and do something. But in those kind of cases, you're going to have the exorcist performing the exorcism. And then you're going to have people that are helping, that are going to be holding that person down if need be. So if they start struggling and doing something like that, they're under control. And they do not possess ungodly superhuman strength where they can throw you across the room and you could hit them with 39 rounds and they just smile at you. That's not real. That doesn't happen. Me and one other person can easily hold anybody down. You know, I can hold you down by myself while an exorcism is being performed. Now, yes, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", about 300 pounds, and I'm strong as an ox, but you would think that if being possessed would cause you to have this superhuman strength, that even a big guy like me wouldn't be able to hold you. But I can easily hold you down if you're possessed. It's not a problem at all. So that's not from reality. That's from the realm of make-believe. If it's a black-eyed child or a black-eyed adult, that's another theory that has been bandied about for this case. To me, that just doesn't fit, because all the reports we have of the black-eyed children, they don't talk a whole lot. Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to get you to invite them into the home or to invite them into your car or something like that. They're not going to sit there and have a conversation with you. They never say, hey, I'm the devil. You know, help me, I'm the devil. Now, they will say, help me, but usually they're trying to get you to allow them into wherever you are. The black-eyed adults don't really talk much at all in the reports that we've gotten of them. So that doesn't fit either. The only thing I can see that kind of matches is the black eyes. So unless we're dealing with a black-eyed adult here that is completely different than all the other reports we've had, which is a possibility. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because we do have a lot of reports of black-eyed children and black-eyed adults, and we've done shows in the past on these subjects. And if you want to watch those shows, go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. They're all there for you. Every episode of Staring is there. We've done shows on black-eyed children where we've went over different witness reports and the follow-up on them, what happened to those people. And we have done shows on black-eyed adult sightings and where there's actually been deaths linked to the black-eyed adults, drownings and sicknesses linked to them after experiences with them. Those episodes are on the YouTube channel. Feel free to go and check them out. So that whole thing, that whole genre with the black-eyed children and the black-eyed adults is kind of ever evolving, because we don't know a great deal about them at this point. I mean, nobody does. All we know is the cases that we have studied and dealt with. So we know what we've been told. We know what the case reports say, what the witness reports say, but it's not something that's been around for hundreds of years that we've had a chance to really get a long-term study on, to where you have multiple generations that have been studying these creatures. This is a fairly new phenomenon that has begun to happen within our lifetime. So it's not something that has an overabundance of information available. But there are a lot of reports out there that you can go and check out. This doesn't match that. In all of the reports of the black-eyed children and the black-eyed adults, there were never attacks. There was creepiness. There was things that happened later because of it, sicknesses and death that occurred after the encounter. And in the one case, you had the person have the encounter with the black-eyed adults, and then a few minutes later, the person literally just turns and walks right into the river and drowns himself. But even in that case, which was a death almost immediately after the encounter, even in that case, there wasn't a physical attack. The black-eyed adults did not chase the person. They did not charge them and try to do them harm. They did it mentally. They got the person to do the harm to themselves. So black-eyed adult doesn't really fit here, unless, like I said, it's a whole new thing that we've never heard of with black-eyed adults. So then if it's not possession, and it's most likely not a black-eyed adult, that only leaves the one possibility, and that is either drugs or this is just a crazy person, or some combination of the two. It's possible that this was a crazy person, and that's why they did what they did, and they were under the influence of drugs. that would give them the ability to sustain that kind of injury and that kind of damage and keep coming. If I had to guess, I would say that's what it is. That would be my theory here, is that we're dealing with somebody that is not completely there and under the influence of either PCP, bath salts, something like that, that not only alters the mental state, but also fills you full of adrenaline and fills you full of almost like a superhuman ability to absorb damage. That's why I keep going back to PCP, because that is the best known drug that has these kind of effects. Now, nowadays, you never know what you're getting either. Back in my day, when I was coming up, marijuana, regular old weed was something that you would smoke and you'd get the giggles, for maybe an hour. And then you'd kind of go in the kitchen and eat a whole block of Velveeta cheese or something and not be able to go to the bathroom for a week afterwards. That was kind of the experience that you had with marijuana back then. As time went on, it begun to get much, much, much stronger. Not only is the marijuana itself stronger, but also the kind of stuff they lace it with is way worse. So you could be getting a drug, and I'm not only talking about marijuana here, this has happened to all the different drugs. Everything has gotten stronger and more dangerous. Because like with cocaine, they began cutting this stuff. They've always cut it with different products in order to stretch it so that they can make more money off of it. But they've begun adding in things like the fentanyl and stuff that gives it that extra kick. But the problem is it's killing people. You see that with heroin a lot now too, is they'll put that fentanyl in it and it just wipes people out because they're not used to that kind of strength. I mean, because it only takes a tiny dot of fentanyl to kill you. And so you got Tyrone there or whatever that is selling the drugs. This isn't a scientist. This isn't a doctor or a pharmacist that's doing this that knows what they're doing. This is just some guy who wants to make a quick buck. And, he goes and buys a big pound or two of coke or heroin or whatever. And he says, okay, I've invested 20 grand in this. I need to make as much as I can. So let me cut it. Let me mix in some baby powder or whatever. I don't know what they cut it with. I'm not a drug guy, but whatever they use to cut these drugs to make them stretch, let me do that. There was always talk of that all the way back, even when I was younger. But nowadays, it's a lot more dangerous. Everything is stronger, is mixed together in ways that were never even imagined back then. So it's hard to tell what kind of effects you're going to get when you buy some kind of drug off the street. That's my main point here. So it's very possible that this person was a recreational drug user and was used to taking whatever drug they took on the 4th of July, except for this time, they got a little something extra. They bought the normal drug they're used to taking, but it was laced with something else, and it had some weird effect on them and caused them to go through psychosis. It caused them to go a little nuts, and so they attack. Definitely a possibility. Could have been a crazy person under the influence of drugs, or it could be a totally normal person, just like you or me, who went a little bit too far one night and did drugs and completely lost control and had no idea what they were doing. See, I used to believe, because I'm not a drug user, so I used to believe that whole thing was kind of BS. I used to think that, well, no matter how many drugs you did or what you did, you still know what you're doing. You can't tell me that, oh, I have no idea what happened. That's a cop-out. It can't be true. But I've done a lot of research, and I've watched a lot of videos of people that are under the influence of all kinds of different drugs. And I can tell you from what I've seen, sometimes they're completely out of their mind. They're crawling around on the ground in weird ways that remind you of something out of a horror movie. And they are speaking in crazy voices, low and demonic sounding, and they're saying things that no sane person would ever say. And they're doing things that no sane person would ever do. And then afterwards, they have no idea what happened. So you really got to think about that when you do drugs. You got to think about, what effect is this going to have on my brain? What is this going to do to me? And how do I know what I'm getting is actually what I'm supposed to be getting? You got to be careful. Now, Obviously, there's a big difference between somebody who's doing marijuana and somebody who's doing bath salts or PCP. Big difference. I'm not trying to equate those two. I know I spoke about them both in the same train of thought, but I'm not trying to say they're anywhere near each other. Marijuana is a, well, it's I was going to say a harmless drug, but that's really not true. That's not what I want to say. I don't believe that marijuana will hurt you, but I think it's not just a harmless drug. It's a beneficial drug in a lot of ways. And the science simply backs me up on that 100%. There are people that suffer from all kinds of different things that marijuana helps. This ranges all the way from marijuana helping to restore the appetite of cancer patients that are going through chemo and working as a pain reliever for those people, all the way to people that deal with fibromyalgia using marijuana to safely manage that pain. I saw a video today of a Parkinson's sufferer who took their Parkinson's medicine and was shaking so badly still after the medicine was taken and into the system that she could barely hold anything in her hands. She took some oil, some marijuana oil. I'm not sure if it was CBD oil or if it was some other form of marijuana oil, but she took it and she ingested just a tiny bit of it. And 20 minutes later, she was just as steady as can be. Absolutely no shaking. She felt wonderful. She was able to speak coherently, and it was a miracle to watch. So there's no reason why, in my mind, marijuana should not be 100% legalized in every state of the union. I think it is a powerful and wonderful drug that if someone chooses, they should be allowed to use because it has amazing medical benefits. So I'm not equating that with PCP or acid or heroin or bath salts or anything like that. But I think that is a very real possibility that this person was on some kind of drug. So that would be my verdict on it from the limited amount of information we have, is that most likely it was somebody that was under the influence of drugs. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and get his opinion on this story and see what he thinks about it.
Thank you, brother. I'm kind of like the same way with you. I think it was somebody on drugs because if it was bath salt, you can do crazy stuff. I've seen what he's talking about, and I've seen people go through chasing after cars and going right through the windshield and just get up and like there was nothing going on. I've seen it. It's bath salt can really mess you up. There's also this drug, I don't know what it's called, something else. It was in Russia. It made you kind of like a zombie. It made you like incredibly, almost like a zombie pretty much, but you couldn't feel pain. I seen people like jumping through cars and ramming their head through what do they call those, bus doors? It was ramming their heads right through the glass like it was nothing. What I think is, if it was a black-eyed adult, not children, for one, here's the problem with that. Most black-eyed children or adults have to knock before they're let in. See, just like vampires, remember you guys seen Lost Boys? You have to be invited in. Well, I think that's what it is with lost children and black-eyed children, and black-eyed adults. You have to let them in. That's why they ask to come in. I don't think that's what it is. It might have been somebody possessed. You never know. That could happen. I've seen it. I've seen people get possessed. The black-eyed thing is kind of weird. That sounds like, she was probably on it could be, I'm thinking bath salts. That's what I'm about 80% sure of. Or she was insane. Or she could be on PCP or both, because they can make you absolutely strong. And there's people who've taken 8-9 shots by a gun and still survived. Now, James is saying there's some clip, I don't know what their laws in Virginia, but now if you have a Glock, like a 9mm, you can carry up to there. If you get federal, if you're a federal, say that he worked for federal police, they have rounds up to 24 rounds. 20, 21, 22. It's like with Glocks, you can have 21, 22. They even sell 50s, What I'm thinking is this guy had like an 18 round Glock, or maybe a 19 round, and because he said 39, so that sounds like he had one in the chamber and he shot off 18 rounds, and then he added up another one, 18 round gun. That's what he might have had, and this guy he probably hit her a couple times and he probably missed. I heard of this similar story of this guy shot like 19 times. He didn't even hit the person but one time. But that's what happened. He shot a warning shot for one. So the first was a warning shot, so he only had 38 shots or whatever, one or two. So he probably shot away from her still. And some people just don't know. He just emptied it, or he's exaggerating it, or it could be exaggerated. But they arrested the woman, so it happened. So we know this isn't a lie or some crazy story. It never happened, or it's just made up. There is a possibility it could have been the devil in her. I don't think it was the devil. I think it was a demon or some kind of evil entity. It might get superhuman strength that stuff doesn't help. Like a bullet won't do anything to it because it's possessed the body. She could have survived. That's not impossible. Do I think that? No. Possibility, maybe a slim chance, maybe 10%. My saying is she's probably on bath salts or some kind of drugs or some kind of bath salt or some kind of stuff that made her like pretty much superhuman because she broke into the house. So that seems to me like she was probably trying to steal something and then just got caught and she's asking for help. She's probably out of her mind, so you don't even know what she was really doing. She's probably just crazy. I don't know if you guys ever seen somebody on drugs. I've seen it out here. I watched a guy naked, butt naked, and it was in the middle of the winter. I think it was like 22 degrees, and he was jumping in people's cars. The guy beat the crap out of him. He still got up. Then the cops came. The cop kept telling him to stop. Then he started hitting him in the knees and his arms with one of those extended billy clubs. And now 3 or 4 cops come out, start tasing him. He finally went down after like 4 or 5 of them got him with tasers and nightsticks. So that should tell you. And like the guy was bleeding. I don't know what happened to him, but he was so out of his mind. Like it didn't stop him. And I've seen it before in my own, I've dealt it in California. We have a lot of drugs here. We have a lot of problems with methamphetamines and cocaine and PCP. And, you know, what happened in Florida with that guy getting his face eaten a long time ago. He was on bath salts. So they claim. You know, there's other stories into that. We don't want to that's a whole nother story we could do. And maybe we'll do a show about that. I'm glad he brought that because there's other incidents about this drug. I think she was probably on drugs. She got messed up, broke into these people's house, trying to steal something, or she was just out of her mind. And the guy attacked her. You know, she attacked the guy after he warned her. I think he was scared to kill her, so he shot away from her, or they were fighting her, and he was just shooting it everywhere. He was probably in a panic. It was probably at dark. This guy didn't really know what he was doing. Or it's exaggerated because he would have to change the clips. Or the magazines, sorry, and his guns to keep it going. So he had a pistol, so that's why I'm like, yeah, that's kind of right there is kind of a red flag right there. He would have had to change it 2 or 3. He would have killed the lady. I don't care what she was on. After you shot 39 times, if you hit her at least 10, 15, you're going to kill her, especially if you shoot her in the face. If there's somehow that she didn't die, then she had a demon in her. That's the only thing I can think of. But she did. She was hurt. Her head was bleeding. So she, I think, was on the drug. I don't know which drug it was. Or she was just off her meds. People just lose it. I've seen people lose it not being on their meds. Or she could have mixture or something. Like James was saying earlier, she could have done some kind of crazy drug that we don't even know of. I mean, there's stuff out there they mix all the time. Ecstasy with other stuff, and they make all these crazy drugs like that heroin one where it made your body rot away. Black heroin, I thought it was from Russia or something. People were doing it, but it was so addicting. But still, even when they did it, their bodies would rot away, like their legs or limbs or face. It ate up their flesh like a flesh-eating disease. It was really weird. But I don't see that should tell you how crazy drugs are and how addictive they are. Because people mess up their lives, they do crazy stuff, kill people, murder, sell themselves for sex, whatever. They'll do it for that. It's crazy how drugs are. And marijuana, I agree with them totally. In California, it is almost legal. You can buy it if you have a marijuana card. It's California. It's if some parts of places like we're in Adelanto, where I work, it's legal to buy. The county doesn't agree with it, and federally it's still legal, so they still can bust you. But it isn't like Colorado. But still, remember, guys, even if states legalize, it's still always going to be federally legal. So the feds change it. I think they should because, like I said, I don't see any dangers to marijuana. I see some people say that's a gateway drug, and I've seen people use it. I think if you're going to smoke it on your own time, you should. It should be like you're drinking alcohol. If you're going to drive around, you shouldn't be. Because you're doing a narcotic, a drug, whatever you want to call it. It still alters your mind. But I agree with it should be legal. I totally 100% agree with James on that. And I don't get it. I think that comes into money thing because if they give us a cure for all the drugs the diseases out there, they won't make any money anymore. It's a billion dollar industry. With insurance, they're all connected to hospitals. That's a whole nother story. And they know what they're doing. You go to the emergency room for a regular checkup, it's $700. If you would go if you didn't have insurance. You go to an emergency room, it's 10, 12, 15 times more than that. $6,000-$7,000. That's absolutely ridiculous. And they say, oh, well, it's because of cost. I'm sorry. A pill, and this has happened to me, like an aspirin, they charge you $25. I can't believe that. That's ridiculous. But they get away with it, guys. And this is why. If they gave you or got you better, they won't make any more money. Industry is always going to be like that. With marijuana, okay, guys, once they legalize it, and they will one day, the government's going to have their hands in it, and they're going to control it, and you're going to spend a lot of money. Even with these places you buy marijuana, you got to pay another $8, $9 tax on top of buying the marijuana. So say you want to buy a gram, it's $45. I'm just showing you an example. You're going to pay $54 or $55 for the extra $10, $9 tax. So remember that's what's going to happen. And then I don't want to get into this being a marijuana show, but that's what's going to happen. I think, getting on the subject with this girl, that she was on drugs. And I'm willing to bet that. But there is a possibility she was possessed by a demon and said she was the devil. Or this drug made her think she was possessed by the devil. That's 100% possibility on that. And that's why she got that whole gimmick. And then she had superhuman strength and was unstoppable. It can happen. Some guns, like with our company, I'm an armed guard. I can't tell you what company you work with, but like a lot of cops, they went away from revolvers and 9s because it doesn't drop people. I've seen it. 38s won't go through a window. It matters what kind of ammo. Sometimes it won't happen. Some revolvers, you see, people think they're just 6 and 5 shots. They're not. They have 7 and 8 shots. They even have special. It's hard to get, but you can make them up to 9 shots or more. People make them special. I've seen it, but you can get a 7 and an 8 round revolver. Most of them are 6, though. That's the average, or 5. But if you shot 6 rounds at somebody, and I've heard this happen by cops, a 38, they shot 6 rounds, and the guy kept coming at him with a machete and cut him, and then his partner shot him 3 or 4 times and finally dropped him. That was 10 shots. So it's possible that she survived. I had a friend that went to war. He got shot 14 times, and he survived. He was in the Vietnam War, and he survived. He was shot 14 times. So I know it's possible. So, but he wasn't on drugs. So, he was crazy after it. And, I wouldn't say crazy, but he wasn't the same person, we'll just say, on that. Don't want to disrespect a military man. I'm not going to bring that person's name up, but that happened. And that's crazy to me. All of a sudden, the guy wasn't on drugs and took that many shots. But now this day and age, people do these drugs that are just make you go insane. They say they take you into the demon world. That some of these drugs, maybe she was possessed because of the drugs. Maybe some of these drugs do take you to another dimension where these demons are at, and it got into her body. So maybe here's what it is. she was on drugs, but maybe she was both. She was possessed and on drugs. The drugs just enhanced the demon in her and made her do crazy stuff. I mean, think about that. Could be a theory I was just thinking of. I'm glad I just thought about that. That it could be both. She was on drugs and it made her hallucinate, and or it made her really tap into the dark, into that realm, because we don't know. We never know what really can happen. You can open your mind up to things, and maybe that's what happened. She opened her mind up, and this thing jumped into her and took over her whole body. And it's a possibility. That's another possibility. That's a third theory on it. Or she was just stalking mad and crazy, and that's another theory. But I think that there's more to this. I think it's the drugs. Could have been a possession, but I'm really going to bank on the drugs. So that's all I can say on that, brother.
I think that we're totally glossing over an important clue from within this article. And it was first mentioned in the headline of the article that this woman was naked. Buck-ass naked. Now, I think that's important because that not only tells us her state of mind, because there's got to be something going on for you to be buck naked trying to break into somebody's house, running around yelling that you're the devil. That's not normal behavior. So that would lend credence to the drug theory. But also it tells us a little bit about her physical state as well. Because, and I'm going to need help down in the comments from people that are more knowledgeable than I am on drugs and the effects on the body. But I remember reading that some of the effects that different drugs, and I believe PCP was one of them, has on the body is it causes you to become overheated. You feel very, very hot, so you take off clothes. So that's kind of goes with the territory a little bit on some of these drugs. And as I said, please, if you are aware of the drug I'm speaking of, if it is PCP or even if it's multiple drugs, and you have that knowledge, please leave it down in the comments. I'd be interested to read that, because I'm not the most knowledgeable person on different illegal drugs because it's kind of not my scene. I don't do drugs. I drank when I was younger, but I've never really been into the whole drug culture as far as that being a part of my life, because I was raised in a military family. I was raised in a strict, honorable way that drugs were thought of as something that were just off the table. You just didn't do them, period. So I was never around that culture growing up, really. So I didn't have those experiences. So I don't have that great knowledge base. But I remember reading in an article that I believe it was PCP, but it might not have been, that there are drugs that cause that reaction in the human body, that it causes you to feel like you're burning up hot and you have to take off your clothing. It might even be bath salts does that to you as well. So if that's the case, if I'm remembering correctly, then that's even further evidence that what we're dealing with here is most likely some sort of drug-induced psychosis. That would be my guess. It's a scary and a fascinating thing how the mind works. We don't really understand it even now. You hear a lot of people say a lot of things that really don't know the science. You will hear people say that, you don't know what the human brain is capable of because we only use 10% of our brain. I hear that all the time. And that's simply not true. It's not even close to true. What that is based on is an experiment that was done way before I was born, a long, long time ago. And it was kind of a crazy, crazy experiment. Basically what they did was they took mice and they began removing portions of the mouse's brain, a little bit at a time. And then they would have it run through a little maze thing and do a little test to see if it could find its way to the cheese or whatever. And they would cut out a little bit of brain and they would have it do the test. And then they would cut out a little bit more brain and have it do the test again. And this continued until the mouse could no longer complete the test. When the mouse reached the point where it could no longer complete the test, they had removed 10% of the mouse's brain. So they decided that that meant that the mouse only used 10% of its brain. That's why it could no longer complete the test after 10% was removed. So they extrapolated that up to human beings as well and said, well, that means that people only use 10% of their brains. That's what that saying is based on, is that experiment that was done. And forgive me, I don't recall the exact year when that was done, but it was a long, long time ago. And we understand a lot more about the brain now than we did then, but we still really don't understand how it really works as far as what the human being is actually capable of, what portions of the brain do different things. We know what side does which, but there's so much about the brain we just don't understand yet. And it's kind of fascinating the effects of different chemical compounds on the brain and the reactions that you can get. And also the effects of just belief and faith on the brain. That's another fascinating subject. You know, we did a show once where I spoke about how you can heal yourself using your own brain, that you can convince your brain to heal your body, and it works. And I do it in my own life all the time. That we have the power to heal ourselves of almost anything simply through sheer will. And if you want to hear that show, that's on the YouTube channel as well. You can go back and check that out. But you see that put into practice in science with placebos. Now, I'm sure the overwhelming majority of the audience knows exactly what I'm talking about. For those that don't, the placebo effect is essentially they will do a study and they will give a portion of the members of that study what they call a placebo, which is usually like a sugar pill or something like that. It's not a real medication. And the rest of the study gets the actual medication they're trying to study. And they want to see the effects of the medication on the body as compared to the effects of someone who's not taking the medication, thus the placebo. But the weird thing is, in a lot of cases, the person that's taking the placebo has either the same or in some cases even better effects than the person taking the actual drug. And it's simply the power of suggestion on the mind. The mind believes that it's receiving this experimental drug that's going to help it. Therefore, it heals the body. It's fascinating. And we don't quite understand how all these things work or why they work, at least not fully. And to me, that is something going forward in the future that is going to be simply amazing to watch and to learn all these different discoveries that are made about the human brain. You have so many things that are unexplained but that we know exist, such as psychic abilities, telekinesis, all these things, remote viewing. They're well documented. It's not the land of make-believe. We know that they exist. They've been used by our own government. You know, our government, through the CIA, had a program to where they would use remote viewers to spy on other countries, mainly the Russians. That's what that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, was about. That was an actual government classified program. They actually did that. And they had success with it. We know that there are people with genuine psychic abilities. We know these things actually exist. Now, there are a whole lot of fakes out there too. A lot of people that are what I call pretend psychics, who make believe like they're psychic in order to rip you off, but they're not actually psychics. And it's usually pretty easy to tell because a make-believe psychic is going to charge you a ton of money for a reading. I'm not talking about the people that are charging $10 or $20 or whatever, just some tiny amount. Usually when you have something like that, there's a better chance that that person isn't full of crap. But when you have the people that are charging hundreds of dollars for a reading, that, as we say in the mountains, that dog don't hunt. There's something wrong there because that's usually not the way it works. So you got a lot of frauds, but the phenomenon itself actually exists. But we don't know why or how it works. And that'll be interesting in the future to learn. The last thing I'll say before we wrap up is a neat little story about marijuana, which for some reason we got to talking about marijuana. It's probably my fault. I probably brought it up earlier in the show. But it reminded me of this story, how marijuana for the majority of human history has been a wonderful healing drug that was used by people to heal them until it was made illegal and turned into a bad drug that would do bad things. Back in the mountains of West Virginia, my people would use marijuana to make tea. The women would, and they would drink their marijuana tea when it was their time of the month, when they were having their menstrual cycles. And it alleviated cramps and helped with their attitude and everything. It just made it wonderful. And it was kind of funny because they had done this their whole lives. And I remember my grandmother, who was a saint on earth. She was the greatest woman I've ever known in my life. I remember her telling me a story about how one time a government man came and saw their marijuana growing out in their field because it just grew wild everywhere. And he said, why are you growing all that on your property? And I remember her saying that she told him, well, we're not growing it. It just grows here. It's natural. We didn't plant it or anything. It's just here. It's what we use to make tea for our cramps and everything, and to help with various ailments. And the government guy told them, well, you guys need to cut all this down and burn it and make sure it doesn't come back because you can go to jail for that. And he literally gave them a warning and told them they had to destroy all their plants or they were going to get locked up. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't get over the fact that here is somebody from the government coming and telling them that they had to go and cut down a bunch of plants and get rid of them that they didn't even plant. It's not like it was their garden. I mean, they were simple, poor mountain folk. A bunch of hillbillies. They didn't know anything about, what that plant was other than the good it did for them. They didn't plant it there. They weren't selling it. They didn't know that it was an illegal drug or anything like that. It's kind of an interesting and amusing little story about how things change, because that's something that was utilized by the people for generations. And then all of a sudden, overnight, it was made illegal, and then you could go to jail for it, even if you didn't plant it, which to me is crazy. But enough about that. I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy so that he can give his shout-outs, and we'll wrap the show up.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I really did. I love doing this, guys, and this was a good one. If you guys want to listen to any of our old shows, go to James Hershey's YouTube page and subscribe. He'll tell you where to go in a minute. Thank you guys on ParaX for listening to us for the last I think it's going to be 3 years. Well, for ParaX, it's been like 2 years, but if you've been listening to Staring, I meant for 3 years. I love you guys. We got new merchandise. We got some new shirts you guys want to check out to get. Like I said, you have any suggestions, let us know. Tell us what you think about this show, and tell us about the drugs, and any information, let us know. Please don't argue, and I don't want no arguing because it happens. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It is what it is, but please try to keep from doing that and calling people out. We don't want that. You guys want to go check it out. He'll tell you about the store. Another thing is, I have a lot of friends on Facebook and stuff, and people who were famous. I do a show with a famous book author, and we know a lot of people. Well, I've been friends with Michael Ray Bauer. That's how you say his name. He was Donkey Lips on Salute Your Shorts, an old Nickelodeon show. I think it was 91 to 92, 93. He played that part. He was in CSI, Dark Angel. He was in movies, Evolution. I think he was in Dude, Where's My Car? He was in all kinds of other stuff. But he was a 90s child actor. He was in a lot of commercials, I think, too. And he fell in some hard times. And his father had passed away. He had taken care of him for the last, I think, 8 years or so. And he had to neglect his movie career, and he kind of, things happen in life. Well, his landlord had passed away, and I guess his family had inherited the house. Now they're kicking him out. He didn't have much money. So he's doing a GoFundMe page. I usually don't do this, but I'm friends with the guy. I used to like him on TV. I used to watch that show when I was a kid because Nickelodeon, when was great in the '90s and '80s, and he was also on Double Dare too. If you guys remember that, I think he was on a couple shows there. And seeing somebody on TV and you see they're down and out and they need help, and usually this guy doesn't ask for that. That's why I'm helping him. So you guys want to check out Michael Ray Bauer GoFundMe page. He's trying to get $5,000. He's almost there. He's actually put it up a couple of days ago. I guess there's a couple people made comments and he's blocked them. And people always got to say some dumb stuff. They don't know what's really going on in people's life. So you never know how people's life is till you walk in their shoes. So I hope people, if you guys are listening or you listen on the YouTube page, you check him out on his GoFundMe page, or just check him out. He does a YouTube page. He has about 3,000 or 4,000 followers because he's known from that show and other little movies parts he's done and TV shows. So Michael Ray Brower, and you guys, if you can help out, I did. I donated. I don't know if James might. We were just going to give him a shout out and give out his GoFundMe page out there. It's on there. Well, I think we'll send you guys a link or something on the YouTube page. But go check. I think it's GoFundMe.com. Michael Ray Bauer, 90s child actor star. If you guys want to help him out so he can get some money to move, that's so he doesn't live on the street. Because I guess he helped his dad a lot. Back in the '90s, they didn't pay what they pay now. He made decent money, but that was a long time ago. So, and he lives in L.A. and Hollywood. It's expensive to live there. We all know that. So, I hope you do better, buddy. I hope it goes right for you and you get your help you need, and we're praying for you. So, as that being said, good night, misfits, sugar ladies, monster hunters, and demon lovers. I love you. Have a great night and blessed be, and happy holidays are coming up, guys. And to the veterans, happy Veterans Day, because it's going to be in a couple days. Thank you very much for your service.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all so much for your love and support. Thank you for the comments down in the comment section on the YouTube videos, the replays of the show we put on YouTube. A lot of times we get some pretty good information there. We'll do a show on something and you'll have somebody who knows about that particular subject, and they will let you know down in the comments a little bit more information than you had, which is brilliant. I love that. I'm not one of those people that get offended or get upset if you give me more information. I always appreciate that. We try very hard to do the best show we possibly can and to give you the best information that we can give you. We are not experts in every single subject matter on the planet. There are going to be times when people know more than we do, which is completely fine. And if you have that kind of knowledge and you want to help out and give that kind of knowledge in the comments to help out, I always welcome that. Absolutely no problem with that at all. On the YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where you can find all of the old Staring episodes. I put the replay up every Monday. The replay of that week's Staring show goes up. We also have our TV show Tales from the Abyss there, and different kind of paranormal news videos and stuff like that on the channel. So please go there and subscribe to the channel and just enjoy it. It's 100% free. The merchandise store for those listening on the radio is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's teespring.com/stores with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. The shirts, posters, all that kind of stuff is there. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, down in the description box, I will put the link to the store if you want to help support the channel or whatever. That's a great way to do so. We try to keep the prices as good as we possibly can so that it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg if you want some merch. Thank you again for all the support you guys give us. And I will keep that gentleman in my prayers, and I'm going to look at the GoFundMe after the show and everything, and we're going to see if we can't help this guy out. But it's kind of a sad thing because old boy was telling me the story, and it's not like this dude went out and did a bunch of drugs and and screwed up his life. I mean, his dad was sick and he took care of his dad, which is an honorable thing to do, you know. And he kind of got his own health problems over time, and so it's just one of those kind of situations. So if you have the means to help and you feel called to do that, then please, by all means. Thanks for everything, guys, and I just want to say we love you, and we really, really appreciate you tuning in with us every week. And until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.